Yeah. You know what? I don't even care how old I'm gonna be.
Chambers.
Comfortably.
With heat.
You are good to go.
All right. Call the meeting of the Parks and Trails Commission to order. Invite you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kind of fitting.
All right. Well, that was pretty spectacular. Work session.
It
Yeah.
was very educational.
It was. It's smarter than when I came. You'll see what it's like tomorrow. We'll see if I remember any of it. But it's a lot of stuff. That's good. All right, agenda. Any corrections, additions to the agenda for this evening? I have a motion to approve the agenda.
A motion to approve.
Thank you, Val. Second?
A second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Minutes from the February 16th meeting. Thank you, Jessica, for the fine job with the minutes.
My pleasure, as always.
Any corrections or additions to those minutes? Chair will receive a motion to approve.
Motion to approve minutes.
Thank you, Val. A second on that.
A second.
Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Open forum.
If anyone on the call would like to participate, now would be the opportunity to use the raise hand function, or if you're utilizing a phone, *9.
Do we have anybody joining us?
We have one individual, yes.
And who is that? Why not? It's a public meeting. They can't be creepers, man. Come on.
Was it the same person who's always?
Yes.
I would say, I don't know why you couldn't.
Unless they're gonna speak, they would say they'd state their name. They were gonna speak at the meeting.
No, okay.
We have a presentation tonight. Kevin, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. I'm
It's nice-
excited to be here.
It's
Yeah.
nice to have you here.
I don't get as many touches that I would like with the Parks and Trails Commission, so it's always good to meet the new commissioners, and I think I will be maybe being involved in some future work sessions here with park planning coming up, so hopefully can get a little more integrated on some of the bigger things we're doing that pair with public works or engineering. So I also manage the engineering consulting team, so that's where I spend most of my time, and we're very busy. I don't have a formal presentation. There's a ton of stuff going on. I'd be happy to, I was hoping to find out what the priorities of the Parks and Trails Commission were. I can talk about the Bellwether Boardwalk, I can talk about the city park, I can talk about the conversation that has kind of been stalled with trail maintenance that is upcoming and we're gearing up for. So I don't know if there's a priority for the group with time, or if you want me to just dive into them. I'd be happy to have a conversation. It's not really a presentation, it's a conversation.
I think those all sound good. I'd like just a brief update on municipal water, on the water tower.
Sure, yeah, we actually just had the pre-construction meeting this afternoon for the water facility, the treatment facility. So it's actually, the project's broken into 3 projects. There's one contractor that's doing the water tower, one contractor that's building the treatment plant, and then we did get a $3 million federal grant, and that's gonna basically connect the trunk infrastructure, which is the sewer, the raw water line, which is what comes from the wells to the plant, and then the distribution line, which is once it comes out of the plant, it goes back into the homes. That's a project that we had to wait to go through the federal process, and now we're underway. Basically, it's a 2-year build-out for the whole project. So I would say as soon as road restrictions are off, you'll start to see activity at the tower site, which is just southeast of the Hope Church. The city bought a parcel there, and then not too far northeast there, just straight up the east side of 116 is there's another lot that the city purchased for the treatment facility. So those are anticipated to be on board right around the end of 24, first quarter of 25. It's a challenging world to build a treatment plant in right now. We went through a lot of financial management planning and projections. We had some good luck with the bonding. We had a bond for a project that size. We had some good luck with rates coming down here at the last minute. We just approved that, I think, in the last 2 weeks. So it's significant stuff we're doing, where we'd have to deliver water to the community. That would just serve north. The new homes in the northeast, southeast will stay in Maple Grove for the time being. There'll be some future point where we decide, do we stay with Maple Grove or do we build additional treatment facilities in southeast? So all that investment is just for northeast Corcoran, and that had to do with our water agreement with Maple Grove. Is that enough of an update?
I think it's very cool.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's gonna be, you're gonna see stuff go up. I think we still gotta select a logo. I don't know if we've defined that process, but we've left a placeholder in there, so there will be a conversation about what the logo, do you want it to say Corcoran? Do you wanna do a different logo? Do you wanna come with, see, it's kind of been just, let's make sure we have a real project before we put resources on that, but that may weave into the conversation, at least as a resident, whether it comes to Parks and Trails or not, but it may be weaved into like a signage thing, because I would say we want kind of some consistencies on our logos, and so I'm guessing in some form or fashion it might weave through this commission. But we're working on what that looks like now that we actually have a project, so we're not short-staffed here, so we try to focus our resources on kind of the next item. Could probably balance a little bit more proactiveness, but we just have to deal with kind of the growing pains, frankly, of the city, so we don't get over-leveraged. So that may kind of ad-lib into the city park development conversation, because it's fairly similar. I think we've always wanted to wait and see, let the new developments come in, and now we're to the point where we have some larger developments and the needs there to actually develop parks. So we're really gearing up that and finding out how we want to approach that. I know there's the Bellwether Boardwalk. We've met with the developer a couple times. There's some things there where we need some developer feedback before we can action it. We're hopeful that something could be built this winter. That's the ideal time to build that type of boardwalk, so.
Can you back up a little bit on the boardwalk? It's been a long time. We have some new members, and just kind of
Sure.
who, what, where, why, and when.
So the boardwalk was the original Bellwether development, which was probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago that got approved, right when I first started. Been here almost 6 years. There's in the Bellwether neighborhood, there's the neighborhood park, and it's right just north of the open space park, which is that wooded area just west of the clubhouse in Bellwether, if you're familiar with that area. There's a trail system all through that area that is to be constructed by the developer. I anticipate that trail system actually being constructed and paved this year. And then the last piece would be, it would go north, it'll go west, it'll go south, and then the eastern connection crosses the wetland complex just south of the clubhouse. That crossing is a boardwalk. And
As part of a later discussion, here's some photos that we're gonna show.
Perfect.
But for reference, you can see where Kevin's talking about where the boardwalk would connect. Back behind where this photo was taken is the amenity center. So up the path a little bit, I think.
so it's a, I don't know, I'm guessing 600-foot crossing off the top of my head over at least a portion of kind of floodplain. And then it would actually get to some pond, actually some deep ponds, because they pump all the rainwater goes into there, and then they pump out of that. That's their stormwater management plan. So that's really a stormwater basin and wetland. That's very unique, that the watershed approved. So there's some coordination that we have to have as we finalize that design. And we really need the developer to react to kind of our position, and then we'll present that back to you. So we may want to, staff may want to at least pursue an option of a more enhanced boardwalk than what was originally approved, but we have to navigate the mechanisms of the contract to do that. So that, before we ever build anything, we will bring that back to the Parks and Trails Commission, because essentially there is Parks and Trails recommendation and council approval before we can actually finalize a design. The design hasn't been finalized, is a simpler way to say it. It's a priority. it's a priority for the developer. They can't close out their addition without it, and that's one of the remaining items, so we're crossing our fingers that we can come to a resolution soon and present those options to you folks. Yes?
Is there a design element yet, like, is it gonna be raised above the wetland area, or is it gonna be like sunk into the wetland area? And is it like is there like rails on the side, or is it just a flat boardwalk? Or is that all part of the
Yes.
design? Okay.
That's part of refining the design. I think we might want more design details if we ever do a boardwalk in a future development, as a lesson learned. But yes, I think it's going to be based on the bounce in the water. So the city's position, which I think we're pretty strong in, is it's gonna be elevated, which depending on the final design might require rails. There might be portions that don't require rails that we as a city want, and so that's where it's like we might want an enhanced design, and there might be some contribution from the park fund to help do that. All that would be navigated and presented again before we move forward with the project.
So really, it hasn't been decided, like, if there's gonna be like a sitting area, like with a little covered area, or?
Yeah, nothing's been final, so I can't tell you.
Okay.
I think there's been some interest in doing like a lookout. There's been some interest to do it more creative. There's some baseline fundamental things that have to be resolved before we can have a conversation about the amount of creativity and the expense associated with the creativity. I'm not intentionally being ambiguous, but it's just not decided.
No.
But I anticipate in the next quarter that we would, even before that, but it'll take us some time to react to the developer's response, so.
Because we did talk about it a long time ago, some ideas on what the boardwalk might look like. And I know, I just have sort of had vague memories, and it's not clear whether it was something that I thought that nobody else liked, or something that we all liked, so I won't go into those details, but it was,
Yeah.
designed to be certainly legal and no liability issues and functional, but then also to be sort of a destination, so that when the grandkids come over for the folks in Bellwether, they want to go walk on the bridge,
There's some design criteria that are in there, but we don't have a design, and you can meet that through different ways. So we've requested basically the design that meets that contract language.
and that's the developer that's going to do that.
And they're preparing kind of preliminary 30% designs that we'll react to and have a conversation about, and based on what that is and how we may have a friendly disagreement between what actually that design is to meet that. And I think that we're in pretty good shape based on, we're not gonna accept a boardwalk that's underwater. So there's certain design elements that are just not negotiable. But that's the process to kind of work through this contract, so they're gonna prepare that. They've been working with us. We really need that before we can, comment any further and react to their position. But there likely will be, here's what meets the contract, and here's what we think we might want with some sort of cost estimate difference. And then we'd have to talk about how we execute that, or if the Parks and Trails Commission and the council is supportive of that enhancement. So that's how we're gonna approach it, as a kind of a baseline and an enhancement, and then try to estimate that, and then make a decision on if we value the cost of an enhancement, or if we just haven't put in what they're obligated to do, so.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Of our Parks and Trails Commission. Did we ever discuss, like, what amount the Parks and Trails would fund the boardwalk? Like, or did we not really talk about?
It's long enough ago that even if we did, it's not
The numbers
relevant
don't
anymore.
change.
I would suggest you react to our presentation of the cost difference at that time. I mean, because it's new numbers and it's different and different folks. So that's what I think you could think in your mind what your value is. Boardwalks cost a lot more than people think they do, especially if they're spanning waterways like this one, so. And the real challenge with boardwalks is there's to get what you might consider like I don't want to say cheaper, but a less expensive one, their wear and tear gets pounded pretty bad. So you could have a cheaper one, and you might only have a 5-year life before you gotta seriously put some maintenance dollars into it. But it's a big leap to go to one that you might last 20 years with lower maintenance, so it's that balance of the capital versus the ongoing maintenance, and it's real easy to say it's not worth that, but part of our job is to help say it might be because every year we're investing this staff time or these resources. And it's also performance, right? Like, there's a difference between something that lasts 20 years and maybe 5 without, I mean, it shows wear and tear differently and expectations are different. And so they're challenges. They're definitely, you know, we would like to develop, Jessica and other staff, we're like, we'd like to develop like a boardwalk, like maybe 1 or 2 options that apply in different settings. That's a standard that when a development comes in, we sleeve in that, and it's a lot more clear than kind of what we did when we didn't, when that was like very early in our development world, so.
More predefined expectations that are a little more clear from the start for developers so that they can go into it with.
And we can, yeah, so both sides
And us.
understand
Yeah.
financial commitments and whatnot. So I mean, I don't want to cause any alarm. I think we'll get through it and we'll get something that's very satisfactory, but there will probably be an option on, do you value this enhancement for this dollars and how do you want to approach that? So it's a future consideration for decision makers.
Thank you. Okay, what else you got now for us?
The larger park development, the city park
park.
downtown, we've continued to get donations, and Jessica's probably keeping you in the loop. Another grant we got,
I bet that also has an appearance on your agenda as
It does.
well.
Steel Good.
Perfect.
We
I
like
was gonna
it.
steal my show all night.
We have done a lot of thinking of how do we develop parks in Corcoran? How do we set up structure to kind of get in more rhythm with park development? You know, it was out, I don't know, it was kind of the policy when I got here 6 years ago was, you know, well, let's just wait. Let's wait until we're ready. Let's wait until more people are involved. And then it kind of maybe came faster than we thought. Now we have a lot of needs to develop parks. And so we want to elevate that focus as staff, and that's what we've heard from feedback from particularly the Parks and Trails Commission and Council too as priorities. They've said that at the goal setting session. So how do we elevate that? How do we do it right? How do we do it efficiently? And really our park staff is Jessica.
And Jackson.
And Jackson, I apologize. So that's what we have in terms of need and what we have in terms of staff resources is a challenge. So we've actually recently kind of intentionally wanted to think through what next steps would be and how do we build a program to do park development. And there's actually, I think, something going to council for the 27th on our ideas on how to do that, which would allow us to engage, depending on what route we go, engage that assistance that will build a template as we continue to onboard staff. So it's kind of the program that we did with engineering. You know, there wasn't an engineer on staff. I have an engineering background. We're gonna hire another engineer soon, as probably sometime this summer. And as we know we have enough demand, we'll keep bringing on staff, but we need to have that outside of structure to help us navigate the demand, if we can pay for it through the dedication fund and even, you know, so it gets complicated, but we want to just build that structure and we have some ideas that we think will work, and now we have to present those. So I believe that we can execute a design over the fall and winter and have a project going next year, assuming the project works and it's funded, right? We have a good start with community funding, but it's a large project and some details to figure out, but I think our plan is to be able to execute a project and be in construction next spring this time. There's a lot of work to do to get to that point, but like I said, we're presenting something at council on next Thursday to start that and get authorization to start that structure. And that structure will help create documents that allow us to would allow Jessica or Jackson, you know, in a couple of years, if you to procure, some of the ideas on that would be to develop templates. So bidding out parks, equipment is kind of an intricate process, right? It's different than building a road or a stormwater pond. The ideas are different, the vendors are different. it's more subjective, it's non-engineering, right? Engineers are rigid and rules, that's me. There's some creativity, there's relation, but you wanna still follow the statutory rules and how you bid out stuff. So the goal would be to set up different variations of documents or formats and get assistance with that then we could reuse and just modify, and we've got that structure in place to allow us to move faster when there's an opportunity like a grant, or when somebody says, go, we want to build this park and implement it. And it would also set us up for long-range kind of vision, and we can maybe accomplish more than one at a time. We don't have, so again, I'm maybe a little bit vague, not intentional, but there's a lot more conversation to come on park development, and it's gonna be starting at the meeting in a week, the council meeting in a week, so. Loud and clear, I can echo, staff knows that the community wants investment in parks, so we're gonna try to deliver on that. Is that enough on that topic?
Yes.
And that kind of weaves into what are we gonna do with the Bellwether Neighborhood Park in addition to the open space park, and how do we do something with the open space park north of Ravinia? I mean, we're actually, how do we connect the parks with trails?
I was just gonna ask that.
Which is complicated because we don't have that land, and that can be really expensive, like a trail, like easier built through developments, but at some point you gotta connect them. So that would be part of the conversation on strategies to do that, and obviously there's limitations with where we can get funds, and nothing's ever cheap anymore to do if you do it right. So we're trying to balance all that, and again, I think I don't know what Jessica's perspective is, but I think it's a real investment in how do we develop parks and manage it, and it's I would say a renewed focus and commitment to building that now. I think the support is there in the community. We have enough in the budget to leverage some stuff, and now we just have to kind of almost do a comprehensive plan of park development, a mini comprehensive plan of park development that I think this commission would weigh heavily into as we go through that process. Does that kind of make sense?
Can you talk a little bit about like maybe maintaining the trails going forward?
Yes, I think I said this the last 3 years I was here, we anticipated trails being accepted in developments. That really hasn't happened. Only Bass Lake Crossing South has been accepted and put into warranty, and that the trail there is a future trail really on the west side that's adjacent to the golf course, so there really isn't a trail there. But we anticipate a lot of additions. We're in the mid-30s on additions with all the developments, and I feel like it's gonna be double digits that we likely accept before the end of this winter maintenance season, or have a very good probability to, with them almost built out and some slowdown and them trying to close out developments. They're now caring about finishing stuff, and so I think it's really real that we're gonna have a conversation this summer over what that looks like, how we execute it. We have been talking about that as staff, and I think, maybe, is it in May or June, we'd be bringing that forward? It's maybe slightly to be determined, but we will be engaging that with the goal of having a trail maintenance conversation in place before snowfall. And we're gonna couple that with some like roadway maintenance ordinance topics that I feel is leading public works maintenance that play into it. There's some things, our ordinance it may be a little antiquated, and so we may get, if we really wanna get on trail, the conversation would be like, what trails do we do, when do we do them? Do we do them first, second, third, what priority, where do they sit? Do we have a dedicated person that does them right out of the chute immediately? I mean, there's different expectations there, and they probably change fairly routinely as our trail system grows. So right now, it's hard to justify small sections of trail. So they're probably on the lower priority, would be my opinion. But as these neighborhoods connect, as everything connects to City Park, maybe that changes. Maybe at some point that is a primary route, and we manage to that if that's the direction. So I'm just trying to cover all the topics of where the conversation goes. it can get, in the short term, do you work with HOAs to do some of these neighborhoods, to get them done faster? If that's the demand, there's pros and cons to that approach, and those have to be evaluated. You certainly, even if you do that, you're still probably having a staff person coordinate it, manage it, documents that have to be done, so that if they damage the trails, there's a way to chase them down. So you may be shifting maintenance to a contract manager. So maybe it works for a short period of time, maybe it works if there's enough trails in one neighborhood, but I think long-term, we would want to migrate towards city-maintained trails. And then just where do we start that and how do we start that and collect feedback? So it's, again, coming here. It'll be a busy June, July, August for that policy as well, probably very much in line with some of the park development conversations. So I think you guys will see written correspondence that comes through the Public Works Department on recommendations and options, and ultimately the council would decide, but I know they value Parks and Trails Commission, so.
And they're all paved right now, right? You don't have any?
Yeah, the majority of the new trails are paved. One of the projects we're working on is trying to map all this has been a council goal. We're trying to map out even the easements and get that into GIS software. But yeah, all the new ones are paved. With the exception of with Karanimi Meadows out by Public Works, Birchfield, there's a natural trail on the west side of the creek that was approved. So the west side of North Fork or Rush Creek, kind of behind Public Works, there's a natural trail that was approved there that we still have to, that they're just in the motion now and got recorded, so.
And that came through
Yeah.
Parks and
Through the
Trails, if you
Parks.
guys
Yep.
remember that one.
Yep.
So we're still deciding, is it a wood, that we have to decide the alignment, because there's a ton of floodplain. So we have to walk it with them and do that. And then we have to decide if it's gonna be wood chips or like grass or some sort of vegetation, probably leaning towards grass, just because wood chips wash away and they're actually more expensive and labor intensive than most people might
Didn't that
imagine.
development change quite a bit, though? From
Well,
the
there-
original, from what we saw?
So that, if you remember, that was the Rolke property, so the east half of that property was single-family housing, 9 single-family lots, large lots. That's kind of been consistent the whole time. That's what the first edition is. That's what they're gonna be starting construction on as soon as weather allows. That's the first edition. With the first edition, they had a responsibility to build a natural trail on the west side. Now they've come in with 2 or 3 concept plans. I think one's at the next meeting on the 27th on what to continue to do with the west side. So that may evolve if it's incorporated into those future approvals, if any, those future entitlements. So right now, there is a commitment to build one. It could get adjusted if they get additional entitlements and new plans change. So any changes to that or additions to that or modifications would come through
Again.
this group for recommendation. So that will be, that potentially could change, but right now, once it gets to an executed project, we'll build that, and if they change it again later, so be it. But right now, we're moving forward with that approved plan.
Sure.
So we have a hand raised on our phone call, so we can take a comment from Katie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, she's talking and we can't hear her. This happens every time.
Can she type it and you read it?
All right, try again, Katie.
Is the volume turned up, Jess? My desk.
And one more time. Nope.
A lot of times when you're online.
I hear
Oh,
you,
there we
but they
go.
can't.
There we
They
go.
got to adjust the volume of the speakers in the council chamber.
Nope, we got it now. We should be good.
Okay. Catherine Drivas, 6747 Old Sturbridge. I have just a thought as Kevin was talking tonight. So while we wait, especially for these open space parks to develop, are they being monitored at all for things like oak wilt? And is that, something in the plan? Because it's here You know, it's in my neighborhood. I haven't confirmed it, but when you see oak trees die like within a month, that's got to be oak wilt, right? So, or something pretty disastrous. So, are these big open spaces being monitored for anything like that? Because my thought is if something really gets a foothold in there, then we've lost what we wanted to have. And I just think that that's just something to consider as this planning goes on. And that's really what I wanted to say. I know there's ash out there too, especially in that acreage that abuts Old Sturbridge. So anyway, that was just my comment. Is somebody kind of monitoring that? Somebody wandering through that old trail that goes back through there and casting their eyes up in the trees, I don't know. I just think it's something to be considered because that if the resource goes, then, what have we done? So, or what do we have? But that's it. That was my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's something to chew on.
Yeah, the answer is we don't have active monitoring, like specifically of that area, but it's something that's a good point that can be considered when we look at our park development plan, and especially if those areas are not prioritized, that we would maybe want to do some routine. There may be, off the top of my head, there's, ways to think about, invasive species, buckthorn removal, different program. I mean, that all can be built into how we manage parks, how we develop parks, and I think that's part of the analysis that we want to engage here and start building those type of structure around parks that isn't in place today.
And a lot of those are really community questions too. How does each individual landowner manage oak wilt? I mean, there's some things you can do that are really good and some things that are really bad. Certain cultural practices. When do you trim? When do you not trim?
Yeah, question?
Yeah.
Wondering if at what point you would start looking at doing like a GPS system for trees in Corcoran? Is that part of like a parks and trails management thing? Or, I know there would have to be ordinances in place because that talks about probably a tree preservation process, but like, would that be beneficial to include when we start doing our design of parks? So we know we have this 150-year-old oak tree in the city park that we want to make sure we're taking care of, or.
Yeah, I think you, maybe a soft step in that direction would be, asking for tree inventories before a project. They're fairly expensive, but it's all where you place your value. So, and that would be maybe a first step in saying, how do we understand it? If that's a priority, do a tree inventory. I don't believe our ordinance requires that. It would have to be an ask, but that's something along the lines.
Yeah, for the Bellwether Open Space Park, when we went through and did the trails, we carefully avoided the big trees.
Yeah.
It was fairly informal. We looked, yep, big tree, and go around it, and try to stay out beyond the drip line, and so that the trail wasn't gonna
Yeah.
disturb the root ball.
That's our current approach, is kind of there's not a formal tree survey, but we try to look at that, but that's.
And those trees were flagged and they were noted, and I didn't go out there to watch them do it, but I assume they followed our instructions.
But that's if we identify all the areas. I mean, the city owns this just east of St. Therese. I mean, that's a wooded area that most people might not even know is owned by the city of Corcoran. So, yeah, it's just what's the vision for park development? That might be a leaving question for this commission to think about, is what work with Jessica, but what are the goals? We need to, that's important to know what the goals are before you develop a park development plan. So maybe some brainstorming on that would be certainly helpful, because there's many different ways you can go. Our job is to help tell you how much it would cost and when it might be most beneficial, but what is valued by the community really comes from the elected officials or volunteer officials. So but all good questions. Hopefully next year we can get half of those answered, and then we start getting momentum. That would be a good goal.
Other questions for Kevin? Nice job with Pat on keeping the roads clear this winter.
It was a really tough year. I know it was a tough year for everyone, but winter snow removal is one of the toughest things to manage.
Did the trucks hold up?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we had a couple, but I mean, I give credit to the team. We have really dedicated operations team, and they, I know Hennepin, on some of the county roads had some challenges staffing, and our guys were always there. It's a challenging environment, so they get credit. I appreciate the residents that give us patience. The gravel roads are a bear. They get soft, the dirt goes in the boulevard, and we had 2 or 3 times where the weather just turned on a Friday afternoon, and the roads, you could skate down the gravel roads, and the paved roads were, dry. And so we had to spend all day, like 12 hours, graders couldn't even stay on the road trying to grade, scrape them up, and we had vehicles it was just bizarre. And, I don't get any credit for that. I don't drive a truck, but those guys are, I wish I could thank them enough. They do a great job, and a lot, this time of year, it looks like they did a terrible job. They really did a great job, and we're trying to get as many of the, again, we're time limited, staff limited to, normal probably for, where we're at in the city, but we're gonna try to get some priority areas or where we can gain. We're probably not gonna get every yard, but we're going to try with the resources we have to get what we can out. I think of the cul-de-sacs and the neighborhoods that are just off of a gravel cul-de-sac that have a lot of yards. I mean, those are one of our priority areas. Gravel collector roads where your large lots, you're probably not going to get, we're not going to make it to you. But yeah, we just, mailboxes are always a challenge. There's a lot of conversations and a lot of frustrations. I don't like when my mailbox goes down. So we get it. They happen to us too, but I think overall it was definitely a challenging year, but I think we want to thank the residents too. I will say that I think that everyone's been communicating better from hopefully they see it our way, and then from the residents back, I feel like there's been good, better conversations, and we're going to be hiring a admin assistant in the Public Works Department, so I should probably touch on staffing. We are going to, I think on Monday, we're going to be posting an admin assistant positions focused for the Public Works Department, which I think will really help organize some of that stuff as we grow, help me, help the guys, help with communication. They'll be sitting up at the front counter, but we'll have a point of contact for the Public Works Department, which is it's a high volume position. Also help with the building permits, which falls under Public Works currently. So that position, hiring an engineering development superintendent, which is really another leg of the engineering group, that's not just strictly development. It could be helping us with street projects and the Trailhaven Bridge project that we are working on and almost finished up in the north central part of the city. So a lot of stuff going on there. And we have a couple vacant maintenance worker position we have to fill, and likely more positions in the future. But so we appreciate the council's support in getting equipment. We've got some tractors and some mowers and stuff that we're planning for the trail maintenance, some blowers that we got. Jessica helped with grant applications through Hennepin County. So I think we're doing a lot of really good things. And I think we're well positioned to then now develop the park. So I think we laid the foundation now. Now I think we can get going, which is certainly something that we know is, again, a directive is maybe a good word to say from you folks to get something going.
Any other questions for Kevin? Kevin, thank you. This is
Thank you.
really informative.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I look forward to connecting on, I don't think, on a future work session or a future topic.
And you're all.
I anticipate not being back, anticipate being back before the end of the year, for sure.
Good. Yeah, you're always
You're
welcome.
coming back in May.
Yeah, I
If you
try
guys
not to.
recall, the boardwalk in Bellwether or the open space park in Bellwether, it was requested to do a tour or a walkthrough.
Yeah.
And Kevin had it on his calendar.
That's good. Excellent. Go look for those big trees.
Yeah, see if they went around them.
See if they run around them.
Yep, I appreciate your service, and if you ever have questions or want additional information, feel free to email me, work through Jessica, but we appreciate the support of the community and the elected officials.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackson, I forgot. I neglected to ask you to introduce yourself. Welcome to Parks and Trails.
I haven't yet. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Commissioner Chair Anderson. My name's Jackson. I got hired about a month ago now. Worked part-time through past month up until next week. And then next week, come May 2nd, I'll be basically full-time hours, 40 hours a week here through the summer. A little background about me. I'm currently a student at the University of Minnesota, so finishing out the academic year, working part-time, and then I'll be full-time after that. I've worked in park and rec roles for the past 4 years or so, part-time in Maple Grove for the most part, helping out with the operation of their community center and doing some of the production work for like outdoor concerts and whatnot for them. And I also have a little bit of experience working in the operations of athletic facilities, currently working part-time with the university, helping out with the operation of Mariucci Arena and whatnot.
But what do you do?
I get to drive the Zamboni. So
Oh, rock on.
that's all. There you go.
These people will appreciate that.
So kind of a celebrity.
Definitely a fun job.
I can confirm it. I accidentally went to Mariucci and I saw him driving the Zamboni and I waved and I was like, hi.
Really threw me off. Was not expecting to see Jessica up there, but really threw me off. But yeah, I saw this job posting back in January, and I was really attracted to apply for it just because I feel like in the growing community of Corcoran, I'll be able to have a lot of opportunities within this department and within the city to really explore what I want to do post-college and in Parks and Recreation. I feel like I'll have a lot of opportunity here to get my hands dirty in not only youth athletics, but all the things we've talked about today with park planning and maintenance and whatnot. So there's a lot of different topics I'll get to get exposure to here. So I'm really excited. I've been here for the past month, but I'm really excited for next week to be over and for me to be here full-time through the summer and really get into it. So I'm excited.
Good.
Welcome.
Thanks.
He has been a fabulous addition. I'm not picking favorites between him and Noah. They're neck and neck. But let me just say, he's doing a great job. Everything I've given him, he takes it, he runs with it. I don't think you've screwed anything up. So you're doing great there too.
It's good to hear.
It's been so nice to have someone that I can say, hey, can you take this on? And have confidence that they will do it and they will do it well. And if they have questions, they'll come and ask. I mean, rock star
Nice. Good.
so far. We gotta keep his ego.
Yeah, right.
Here.
That's right.
Of course we do.
For sure.
Yep. Well, welcome, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you.
All right, unfinished business.
Yes, so the two things under unfinished business we'll kind of glide through because Kevin touched on them a little bit already. So during my meeting with Chair Anderson and Vice Chair Christensen, who unfortunately could not be here tonight, we discussed having the open space park and boardwalk in the Bellwether development be a topic of discussion to provide an update, kind of give you an idea of where we're at. Obviously, Kevin kind of already did that, which was very convenient.
Yep.
But here you'll see on the left is in the spring or summertime. On the right is the sad winter time. I just thought it might be nice to kind of give you a visual on both sides. Previously, we met with the developer that took place either last week or the week before. I want to say the week before. And we discussed kind of the expectations, where this project is going, what the next steps are. Decided that the next step from there, or the current step on this slide, is to have the developer put together a 30% design plan, kind of get an idea on cost estimates, what it would look like, what their expectations are for this boardwalk. From there, the city is going to review and provide feedback, whether that'll be staff discussing with the developer at first, and then,
Scared.
A bird hit the.
yep, nope, I saw that. Oh, yikes. Only during Parks and Trails, I tell you.
That's right.
He wants
Yeah,
to
check on
speak.
its health.
Yeah, I mean, probably a good idea.
No, he flew away.
Oh,
Ooh. That's probably best case scenario.
yeah, exactly. Otherwise, we'd have to, take a break.
Yep.
A moment of silence. Next step for the city to provide, or review and provide feedback to the developer, whether that'll be staff kind of discussing with them before we bring back something that's more of a feasible option to you guys. We don't obviously want to waste your time, so we'll navigate that as necessary and then bring it back for discussion further. But that's kind of where we're at the moment. And I'd be happy to take any questions. Like I said, Kevin kind of touched on a good portion of it, gave you a good overview, so.
Did they say when the developer plan would be ready?
Uh,
Timeline?
They said 4 weeks from the meeting, they'd hopefully have something back, and that was about 2 weeks ago. So 2 more weeks, but I'd probably give them 1 more week just in case.
Just because that's how it goes.
Yeah, we all get it.
Yeah,
It
yes,
happens.
we do.
So,
Okay. We're good.
Next.
sounds good, I can go to the next one.
So,
Alrighty, the Hennepin County Youth Sports Grant. Spoiler alert, we got $300,000.
Hey. Wow.
Yes, which,
Wow.
as you recall, I believe I came to you guys numerous times and said, hello, I would love to go out for this grant. We could get $300,000 potentially. The funds have to be matched, which with a $7.3 million project, not hard to do. The award period for the grant began January 1st of 2023 and is good through December 31st of 2026. So we've got some time, especially with Kevin noting that we'd like to be under construction next year. So very exciting stuff. We have the time to spend it. And at the 4/27 city council meeting, so next council meeting, Kevin kind of touched on it, looking to get that park consultant help. So really developing those framework goals of here's kind of how we'll develop the park. Here are the things that are important when we're looking at these RFPs. Here's how we could put this RFP together and kind of have a standard template and then just edit it as necessary for the projects. So making it so that it's a lot more user-friendly for me as a staff of 1.5, and just kind of moving forward in a way that we can accomplish the parks in a more timely fashion, but still have something of good quality.
Well, that's exciting.
It is very exciting.
I agree.
You did good.
Yeah.
I will note, I'd like to give a shout out to the recreation manager of Crystal, because I actually didn't even know that we had gotten it until he texted me and said, hey, I saw you got that grant, what are you gonna do with it? And I said, I'm sorry, what? And he had to send me all of the information because it had gone to like a separate meeting that I hadn't seen yet.
So you weren't, the city, you weren't notified at all?
Not at that point because
Okay.
it wasn't official.
Oh, gotcha.
But so,
Cool.
we got a nice little pre-surprise, which was cool.
Oh, good job.
Nice.
That's great. Yeah, we'll spend it. We'll get her done.
Awesome.
That's great.
Continuing on. Active planning applications. Questions, comments? This is just for our information.
And we do have Councilmember Nichols on as well. I would bet that he would be a wonderful resource for that if you do have questions.
I would be happy to if you can hear me.
We can hear
We
you.
can.
Wonderful. Kathy paved the way for me. Thank you, Kathy.
Good job. Thank you, Kathy.
The list got shorter. Or was that a month, 2 months ago?
I think we say that every time.
Do we? Okay.
But I do pull the one that goes through the city council, so it might be that some of the projects just weren't on there
Actually
because we
finished.
had 2 months off.
Yeah. I saw that.
I don't know if Jeremy wants to talk about,
I told him.
or if we really want to talk about it yet, is the meat locker property, because I know there was kind of some mention about if the city would be interested for parks for that.
I know it's a topic of discussion. I think right now it's determining whether or not park dedication funds would be the best form of financing that if it were to go through. But if Councilmember Nichols has more to say, I'd like to speak to that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. At the last meeting where we discussed it, the current owner was looking for feedback as to whether the city would be open to acquiring it for either park or transportation purposes in the future. It seemed like most of the council was interested in seeing what would be possible if we could get the locker parcel and the 1050 parcel, because one wouldn't be all that useful without the other. So I'm not sure if there would be appetite across the whole council to acquire just that one property. It also wasn't clear, because of the cost of demolition and possible contamination, what we would be able to offer, and they may be better off trying to figure something out to get another use, or a manager, or to sell it for an equivalent use before the 1 year period for legal nonconforming expires. So the challenge, I think, is can they find someone who can make use of the parcel with the limitations on parking and with the encroachment. We may or may not be able to resolve the way that the chute comes into the building from the trailer that currently encroaches on the park. So I think the city could be open in the right circumstances to acquiring it. Feedback from Parks and Trails might be useful to the council. So if you wanted to spend a little time discussing that as a group and how that might be useful within the park design, that could help to inform the council and help us to make a higher quality decision.
Can we put that on the agenda for next month?
Were you looking to have it discussed during this time or just with the timeline? I mean, is there a limited time frame on that?
We don't really know. We gave guidance to the owner that they should come to us with a appraisal, and we could then try to make some kind of a decision as to what we think would be a reasonable offer to make. But it seemed like there was not a lot of immediacy or a need to make a decision quickly. So if people don't feel like they have enough understanding of the background to have a meaningful discussion right now, it probably wouldn't hurt anything to wait until May.
I think my feeling was, I mean, I'm a parkland guy. We should get every square inch we can. But looking at the bigger map of City Park and add that little parcel and even the closed tavern next to it, I think it changed my mind a little bit about how just what a real asset that was to the park. And I didn't think it was much, frankly, but that would be something which I think is clearer when you actually look at the space.
So look at the map.
I think looking at a map is really, I think, worthwhile with taking the time and being kind of a little more planned, a little more thoughtful about it than just, because my initial reaction is always, oh, get the land. And having looked at the map at the city council meeting last time, I think, I'd rather have somebody else buy the locker plant and leave it.
Well, my gut on it was we've already gotten rid of that ball field over there.
Yeah.
Our stuff has been moving, our park seems to be moving the other direction now.
Yeah.
We do have a ball field that is right next to,
That's what Snyder is still gonna be there?
that's Meister.
Meister will still be there? I thought that one was
Oh,
going.
I suppose, you're talking
It
future.
was going away eventually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, eventually. I'd have
We'll
to-
look at it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
that
we
was
just-
I
just
can
my
put it
gut
on the
with
main
it, so.
meeting, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something of urgency that if you
Sure.
were gonna talk about it, you had to do it soon.
Yep.
I think what I remember from the plan was the intent was to have sort of a town green, maybe a concert area there. And so if you were to acquire that triangle, It might give you a little more backstage space. Maybe that could be a good location for a holiday tree lighting ceremony, right on that major intersection. There could be other uses too, if we wanted to go down that road and if there was a desire to expand the park in that way. It's kind of a crossroads location, so there potentially is some value there, but you're not going to add a lot of additional recreational space. It's really more valuable in terms of being able to deal with road expansion or traffic or as a focal point of the park.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nate?
I like watching you guys look up
Look
at
up.
the ceiling while they're talking.
Should be putting them on the screen for us.
To be fair, they're not even on my screen.
No. Still look at the hand or something, whatever's there.
Oh, no, it just says their names.
Oh.
They don't have their cameras on.
I could give Jessica a little paddle with my face on it. She could hold up when I talk.
There we go.
That would be helpful.
I do have yardsticks at my desk that I could put your face on. I have other people's face on them currently, but I could change it.
All right, Jessica, your report.
Tom, you're on my report.
There we are.
So, it has been busy the last 2 months as we ramp up and head into the busy season. Not that there's necessarily a slow season anymore, but youth athletics have been the big priority right now. We've got baseball registration is completely done. We were supposed to start the season this week. Spoiler alert, it snowed and rained and we did not start. We're hoping for next week, but it also rained yesterday and today, and it's supposed to rain tomorrow. So we're hopeful, but
Maybe May 1st.
yeah, it's not looking good. But we're keeping our fingers crossed, just looking towards the future, trying to get started as soon as possible. Obviously, we want to get those kiddos out there, having fun, learning skills, and it's important. So we will get them out there as soon as possible. But this photo is from the Three Rivers Park District's State of the Parks. It was their first annual State of the Parks. So myself, Chairperson Anderson, and our planner, Natalie Davis, all went. It was very informative. The State of the Parks is that they're great. I'm pretty sure that's a direct quote.
Yeah, I think so.
The only downfall was we could always use more money.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, wow, that sounds familiar. So it was really good. It was nice to hear from all of the Three Rivers folks, and they had a nice little expo where we could explore and learn about some of their offerings. For instance, they do have a Recreation Plus Pass or something like that. And people in the Hennepin County and I want to say Scott County area that use assistance-driven programs are eligible for this Recreation Pass that then allows them to rent things for free in some scenarios, like kayaks and maybe snowshoes. I don't know if that was on the list, but I would imagine it's probably on there. But it was just really neat because I was unaware that that existed, and it's now something that I can encourage some of the residents to look into if that's something that they're looking to get into nature and learn more about it. So it was very informative and a good time. The tree giveaway has also been a very big part of my job recently. We have the tree pickup happening on April 29th. It's a Saturday. Tom is spearheading that as normal. And people will get an email notification about that either tonight when I get home or tomorrow. I haven't had a chance to send it out, so I apologize. Training has been another big focus. Obviously, with Jackson coming on, we're getting him on board, learning the softwares and all of that fun stuff. So social media is another one. So we have a new communications assistant that was recently hired. I helped with training for him as well in an effort to start the transition phase for handing off social media to him. So that's really exciting. That'll be one less thing that I have under my belt that I can pass on and focus more on the Parks and Rec side of things.
So what does a communications assistant do? Again?
Yes. So the communications assistant is going to be working under Michelle Friedrich, the city employee Michelle Friedrich. And he's doing the newsletter, social media, the dynamic sign, so the sign out front, the website, communication throughout the city, internally and externally. I feel like I've hit most of it, if not all. But it's a part-time position right now, so he is going to be very busy, I'm sure. Because I can tell you that social media takes some time. But I am very much looking forward to getting some of that time back so that I can focus more on the projects that affect you guys, that affect the Parks and Rec Department. So looking forward to that. And then the final thing is park reservations. We've had a lot. We're getting a lot. We've got cricket reservations. We've got pavilion reservations. People are excited. People want to get outside, and they want to use the fields just as much as I want to use the fields. So I will say I did get numbers for Val for soccer because I would not let her down. We have a grand total of 236 registered participants. For reference, I believe that registration opened on the 3rd of April, no, the 10th of April, 3rd or the 10th, 3rd of April, final answer, for residents. So realistically, it's been open for 17 days, and 236 people have registered in that time frame.
Excellent.
Of that, 97 are residents, which brings our grand total to 41% so far.
Wow.
However, and this is the caveat I always say, that number generally begins to drop about this time.
Sure.
But it's higher than any other year, I believe, and if we can keep it above 20%, I'd be really happy about that.
Sure.
So,
Good.
we keep making that stride towards residency taking over. Really hopeful.
That's awesome.
Is that mostly because folks who live out of town find that their own programs are filled up, or that they don't like it, or?
What I've heard is a couple of different things. I've heard that the program here is pretty well known. I'm not gonna attribute that to just me. It's definitely stemming from a history with the Corcoran Athletic Association, the Corcoran Soccer Association. They really laid a framework that created a successful program that could just be carried forward. So cannot stress enough how much I appreciate that. But additionally, I think it's also because a lot of the kids in Corcoran go to school with the kids in Maple Grove, in Plymouth, so they hear about it through word of mouth. That definitely helps, and the kids want to play together.
Sure.
I can't tell you how many times I have people put on their teammate request, kids from this school, and I'm like, I don't know what school they go to, but I'll sure try. So I think that's the two biggest factors. Because I also believe that our registration closes earlier than most. And we're generally pretty full. I can tell you we are entirely full for baseball this year. Have no more room.
Wow.
It's good.
That's
So-
excellent.
Doesn't matter, it's gonna rain all summer, so.
Don't say that. So that's the update on my end, and then Jackson will take the next one.
Great. So as Jess alluded to, a lot of my past 11 days here, which I added up before I came in here, 11 days has been attributed to training, becoming familiar with technology for field scheduling and registration, for the coaches, that kind of stuff, and becoming familiar with just how the programs themselves are laid out, especially baseball, with the divisions of baseball we have, and trying to figure all that out and how it's ran. Becoming aware of like our internal policies and procedures, and also getting a tour of the park and the city and whatnot. And then beyond that, it's really been baseball. Processing the coaches' background checks, getting out coach and parent emails to get them ready for the season. And a lot of questions beyond that too that have been coming my way. Sorting up the uniforms, getting them ready for the players, hopefully next week. Also started soccer registration, quite a few questions coming in with that to my end. Helping out a little bit with getting some field scheduling good for the summer. So, yeah, been keeping busy in my 11 days so far.
Sounds like it.
Will be expanded soon. So.
Still going to school.
Yes, one more week. So.
I will say we've been focusing on the school aspect. I keep telling him, I want you to pass your classes first.
Yeah.
That's priority number one.
Good
It's
job.
supplemental, yes.
Good job.
Nice, all right. Miscellaneous subcommittees and reports. City council report?
Yeah, we all look up
Good
to
evening once
Jeremy.
again. I'm still here. You still got me.
Sure.
So there are a few things going on right now that might be of interest to you folks. We can talk through the sketch plans if you would like. I also got a couple of ordinance updates that we're looking at doing that you might be affected by one way or another that we could talk through. Maybe we'll start with the list 10A in the packet. So we had Cook Lake come in and ask for feedback on potential changes to their proposal. We haven't gotten a formal request of what they would like to see changed yet, but it sounds like they may need to change from their planned development of a 100-unit co-op into a senior rental instead. And they may or may not need to change one of the commercial lots into family homes. So we discussed that with them. We haven't gotten a formal request for what they want to do, but I would imagine that may come through in the next couple of months, depending on how the market trends for their customer. We also reviewed a concept plan for Karanini, which didn't really have a significant impact on parks. It was the development of the western side of the parcel that they presented last year that ended up getting approved. So mostly commercial with a little bit of additional residential there. This might give us an opportunity to build out that trail, though, if it were to proceed. So I think we would all like to see additional trails in that part of the city, and that could be a good vehicle to get some of those in place. We also reviewed a concept plan on a development called Amira Village, which would be just to the north side of Cook Lake, to the south side of Maple Hill. The initial proposal was they wanted to build about 105, 110 unit rental single family home community. Feedback on that was pretty mixed. It's not entirely sure if they're going to proceed with that or if there might be some significant changes before they actually submit. So again, nothing definitive, but there is still some development in process there. In terms of the ordinance side, we're looking at two. The first one, and I think the one that probably has the simplest path forward, is a rental ordinance, which we're looking at putting in place that would have a few different effects. One effect would be we would have limitations on numbers of rental licenses that can be given to any specific entity or individual. And the intent behind that is to ensure that we don't have a large amount of our housing stock turned into rentals. There's a movement in that direction in a lot of cities. It hasn't really come to Corcoran yet. But if you look in the Minneapolis metro area, the Fed Reserve put out a report a year or two back talking about in certain neighborhoods, they can see up to 25 to 30% of the homes become purchased by investors, typically, well, often large investors, and then converted into rentals. There's also going to be limitations on how many rental licenses would be issued within a city block. And city block is maybe not the right term, since not all of Corcoran has what might be conventionally called a block structure. So in this parlance, what they would mean is in an area that's enclosed by streets, parks, and water, no more than X% of those properties would be able to be given a rental license at any given time. So this one is probably going to proceed into public hearing in the next month or two. The other one that we're working through has a more direct potential to impact parks in the PUD ordinance updates. What we're looking at doing on this one, and I would encourage you to go back and look at the last council discussion. There are two main effects that parks might be affected by. One of them is that for developments that have come in as a PUD, if they're a single family development, there would be a requirement that if lot sizes are below, in the current draft, about 72 feet, there would be required to be a sliding scale of open space that would have to be dedicated as part of the development. That open space would have to be accessible. It also needs to be upland. So it wouldn't count to include stormwater ponds or wetlands. It would need to be buildable area that would then be permanently preserved with some kind of an open space development plan. So it might be cultivated as a forest. It could be kept as prairie with wildflowers. But the intent is that that space would be permanently preserved and accessible to residents of the city. So it's sort of an augmentation to parks that would be maintained by homeowners associations. And the real motivation for that is to ensure that as the city continues to experience development, we'll be able to retain at least a portion of our open spaces. And the natural resources that we currently have can be preserved in that form. The second element of it is a more detailed and itemized list of things that the city would value and see as a public benefit within a development construct. That can be done in one of two ways, and the council has not agreed yet on which way would be best, and we're looking for some feedback from the public on this. The first approach would be just to publish a list of things that we feel would be valuable, and developers can use that to help inform how they set up their developments, but it wouldn't be a requirement that they attain any particular mix of what those features would be. The second approach would be to assign a point value to the things that we feel are most important. And that would enable developers to determine which things are more valuable than others. And we could have a threshold beyond which the plan would not be able to advance to the city council for approval with the staff recommendation. So in that case, we would be able to set basically a floor on the level of amenity that would be present within a PUD proposal. So the requirement side allows us to ensure that we're going to get things that we actually value in sufficient quantity. The other way would potentially provide some additional flexibility, but there's a limited understanding of how valuable that would actually be to the city. Any questions, comments, feedback so far on that?
Sounds complicated.
Good
Good job.
Certainly, there would be the kind of responsibility issue on the open space design and then maintenance and then redevelopment in 20 years and so on.
Well, there would be, there wouldn't be potential for redevelopment. These would be permanently preserved. So it's not like what you would see in an OS&P where they dedicate a significant amount of acreage, but then that acreage is intended to be developed when municipal services are available. The intention here is when we set aside 10% or 15% of this buildable area for open space, it will remain open space and has to be protected.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Busy, that's good.
Any other questions for me or thoughts on any of those topics?
I'm seeing people shake their head no.
Oh, that's right, he can. Oh, he can.
I think I talked too long then.
No, no.
Okay.
No, that's informative.
Yeah, good information.
That's why you're dialing in, is to keep us informed on what's going on. The city council is busy. I was at the meeting last week and it was a full agenda. It's a good thing. All right. Anything else? Okay. Garden Club report. Garden Club's gonna help with free distribution on the 29th. And, the snow is gone. I was walking out there and some stuff is coming up. So, with that garden, somebody left the hose out last winter, still out on the lawn, where we left it.
The new one?
At everybody's house.
No, I think it's the old one. I think it's my old one that I
Well,
brought in.
that's well, that's not positive if it's yours.
It was disconnected from the.
It was absolutely
Okay,
disconnected.
That's
Yep.
what we worry about.
Yep, no damage was done. Yep, all right. Park dedication. Any questions on the park dedication?
I believe it looks the same as it did.
Same as it did last time.
And I can check with finance to see if there's any additions coming down the pipeline that they can forecast, but
Other business? Do you guys
Well,
have?
on park dedication fund though, so would that grant money be listed on here then coming up?
so no.
You
And
put
here's
it in
why,
general?
it's a reimbursement. It's a reimbursement, so the Hennepin County Youth Sports Grant, I don't know that I've ever filled you guys in on the
We have to spend
end
it to
process.
get it?
Yep, so we spend it, then we go back to them, there's paperwork that we fill out,
Okay.
and I think I've done it 2 or 3 times now where we get the money back, so.
Okay.
So no is the quick answer,
There you go.
unfortunately.
No,
It's just as well that it be invisible.
But I can handwrite it in there if you guys want.
That's okay.
Liaison schedule, you know, I'll do the 27th.
I could do the, actually, if I could switch mine and take the 27th, if that's okay.
So I'll also note that Phil already said he would take the 27th.
All right.
So,
But
but if Lisa,
Lisa, do you want to switch with me?
Summer on Thursdays gets really busy.
Okay.
That's why was my
Well,
thought behind that.
as we get closer,
Yeah,
if you need something
Yeah.
that's up for you. then-
yeah,
I can switch with you too.
yeah, let me look at that date, because that might be,
May 25th.
yeah.
I mean, you have a life other than being on the Parks and Trails?
Yes, yes, 2 little children
2 little children.
demand a lot of time.
Other business? Staff, commissioners? All right.
I feel like I had one more thing I wanted to note to you guys.
I gotta look at it again, my schedule.
I don't, I like,
We
it
have,
was just
we have,
that Phil was taking the 425
well,
meeting.
we have someone put in an application.
We had 2 applications for the Parks and Trails Commission. To my understanding, the subcommittee for the council was reaching out to them to schedule interviews. And then following that, an appointment at this next meeting, I want to say, 4/27. So for the May meeting, we should have someone back in. And I am also postponing the training that I was originally going to have in April about expectations and what the role is and how to read a map, like development maps, because I struggle with it, and if I struggle with it, I'm hoping other people struggle with it, and it'll be beneficial to you guys. So I'll bring that to the May meeting. So it'll be the work session out at Bellwether, and then the meeting will take place here, and we'll go through training and then a few other items of discussion. And we'll have the new person on, and everyone can train at one time, rather than me having to do 2 separate trainings.
Yeah, perfect.
That's good.
And if there's anything you guys think of that you want included in that training, the main focus is gonna be kind of how to read development maps and what the lines mean, what dots mean, and kind of the role as a Parks and Trails Commissioner, because we haven't done it in a while. I think I sent out a handbook at one point, but that was probably the extent of training.
All right, well, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Thank
I
you.
second.
All in favor?
I
Opposed?
Good one.
Thank you.
know.
Good
Thank
one.
you.
Nice meeting.
Way to jump.
Good work.
I
No
did.
kidding.